Hi, my name is Mikuláš and welcome to my tutorial. First thing first, what we are after. Simple, straightforward, minimalist portfolio website on WordPress. No crazy animations, design clutter, just your work, clear structure, easy to navigate, never gets old. Most commonly referred to as the minimalist design. Now, of course, 90% of this tutorial will be applicable to any design, but this is what we'll be making today. The website will have some projects, which could be either image-based or video-based, doesn't really matter. You could be a photographer or video maker, artist or creator of any kind. You can also take a look at my website, minimalio.org, and see what other people have created, just to understand what you will be able to do after watching this tutorial. This tutorial is for total beginners. There'll be no coding, no prior knowledge is needed. So I want to teach you all the important steps you need to take so that you can make the website specifically for your needs. Technology-wise, we'll be making a website on your domain running on WordPress. This costs $6 a month, plus you have to buy a domain. That costs usually around 12, but that's for a year. It doesn't get any cheaper than that. 2 disclaimers. Firstly, WordPress is a total rabbit hole. It's gigantic. It powers 40% of the internet, and there's nothing easier than get totally lost in it. Secondly, the website I've shown you are using my own product, a WordPress theme called Minimalio. Minimalio is a free theme. It's for free, but you can purchase extra options for it, otherwise known as a freemium theme. So now you know why I'm making this tutorial. Now for the structure of this tutorial. First, we'll get a domain and hosting. There's no website without those. Then we'll install WordPress, see the basic concepts, what themes and plugins are. After that, I'll explain how you add content to WordPress, the Gutenberg editor, and how you adjust the design. Last, we'll set up the security, backup, and some useful plugins like SEO plugin. Just super briefly, I'll explain what domain and hosting are. If you already have those, you can of course skip this part. So when it comes to domains, it's pretty simple. You just have to register them. Now for the hosting, it's basically a service in which you rent a space on a giant computer called a server. And when people put your domain in their browser, they connect to this computer, which sends your website over. In the end, I decided to go with nixihost.com. So let's go to the nixihost.com, click on shared hosting options, and let's choose the mini shared hosting. Awesome. So firstly, we have to choose a domain. nixihost allows you to register a domain here, so that's what we are going to do. In case you already have a domain, or you want to register a domain with a different domain name, you can. Probably the most popular place for registering domains is GoDaddy.com. Then you would put that domain here in the nixihost, and after purchasing the hosting from nixihost, you'll have to go to GoDaddy and set up what's called name servers. It sounds much more complicated than it is. You just copy paste a little bit of text. I'm sure the nixihost support or ChatGPT will explain how to do that. Okay, but we'll go with the easy option and just register domain through nixihost. Alright? We don't need any of this extra stuff, so let's click continue. I never got any spam because of my domain, so I don't think any ID protection is needed, whatever that is. Let's continue. Alright, now let's check if the domain is correct. I'm only doing this for the purpose of this video, So I'll use a promotion code that will adjust the hosting price and cancel it after a month. But of course, you don't want to do that. And let's go to checkout. Now, of course, carefully fill this form. Especially make sure your email is correct. And also, please, when it comes to websites, you have to use secure passwords. The overall thing here is that your website will be able to send emails and advertise stuff. So, unfortunately, there are loads of very bad people that create malicious code that will try to guess your password and then use your website. They are not trying to hack you personally, they are trying to hack everyone. So when it comes to hosting or WordPress, you have to use complicated, long, secure passwords. Really, I beg you. No pet names, no date births, etc. Alright, in the end, you put your credit card information here and that's it. After your order is processed, you should get to the order confirmation. And let's jump to the client area right away. Alright, this looks all perfect. We have the domain, we have the hosting plan. Now let's install WordPress on your new domain. And we do that in this section called cPanel. And thank you nixihost for being so user friendly. Right here, you get the option of setting up WordPress. So let's just click install, perfect. And here we basically just have to set up the admin account. Everything else is either set up for us or we can adjust it later in WordPress itself, like the site name or site description. So let's make the admin account. Here's the only part which made me a little angry with nixihost, and that is that here is a default username for you, which is just admin. This is a security disaster. As explained, there will be damn bots that will try to hack your website, and if you use the admin as a username, you have basically done half of the work for them. So this has to be something unique. Doesn't really matter what. Ideally something that is not completely obvious. And again, the password, don't want to repeat myself, but this really is essential. This is not like your Netflix account. If your website will get on Google, it will get attacked. It is unfortunately a certainty. And then just press install at the bottom. Awesome. That's it. Congratulations. You can now check your domain and see there's some default content from WordPress. And you can also click on your domain with the WP admin and you can get straight to the WordPress. Boom, here it is. So just to explain, if you put /WP admin, that's how you log in to WordPress. So I just log out here. And then if you put WP admin after your domain, you get to this login form. There you put the account admin details that we just made. And this is how you log in. So basically, this was the last time you should need to log into your hosting. Just once a year, you'll get an email from them saying, pay us money, you do that, and that's it. Boom, welcome to WordPress. Now this is the main menu of WordPress. There could be more items here, but these will always be here. Generally, but not strictly, the upper part is your content and the lower are the different settings of your website. It starts with the dashboard. Nothing really interesting here, to be honest. And now we get to the content. So here are the different types of your content. Each is a little unique. They would show differently on your website and they might each have some different settings. Now there are pages, posts, and then some plugins can add another one, what's called a post type. So for example, portfolios. All of these have one important thing in common, and that is they have all their unique URL. So you can link to them either through your menu or as a normal hyperlink. And then it depends on you, how are you going to use them to structure your website. So in our case, we'll have a normal page, like About Me page or Contact page, for example. And then there are the pages that are called archive pages. And those are the pages that will list the posts and portfolios. So here's the main difference between pages and posts. And that is that you can create a page, usually called a blog or portfolio, which will have this list or grid where the posts or portfolios are. If you open one of the post type, you will always get a list. And if you hover over them, you can get these different options. I would say that only one that is not totally obvious would be the quick edit, which will allow you to edit some metadata. As you can see, there might also be some post categories or tags that you might use, for example, to filter your posts. This is also something unique for the posts and portfolios. If you click on them, you get to the main editing. This is the Gutenberg editor, more on that later. In the media, you just get all the images, potentially PDFs or even videos. You can upload them here, or if you edit your content and you add some images there, they will also appear here. They also get their own URL, which you might need if you would, for example, want to link to a PDF or an image. The images also have this, which is called an alternative text, and you should describe there what's on the image. This is not only for blind people, but Google also uses this, so it's useful for you, even if you think that blind people will never visit your website. And then there are comments. In more than a decade, I've never done a website where people would actually want other people to put comments on. So I always switch them off. Because if you leave them on, all you get is a ton of adverts and spam. But up to you, of course. Now to the general settings. Let's start from the bottom. So here are the general settings of your website. You have the site title that will show in the tab. You have the site icon that will also show in the tab. You can change the main admin here, choose a language of WordPress, and change how WordPress shows dates on your website. And in the end, you always get a save button. Nothing interesting in writing, to be honest. In reading, you have an important selection of choosing your homepage. So, if you don't choose a specific page as a homepage, WordPress will show your latest posts. And here's also an important option, which is to hide your website from Google. So while you work on it, you want this to be selected so your website doesn't get indexed when it's not finished. Of course, don't forget to switch it off once you are happy with it. In the discussion, as I said, I always switch the comments off. You do that here. The rest is then irrelevant. Nothing interesting in media, but permalinks are very important. First of all, this is where you set up how the URLs of your website will look like. I always go with a post name. And this save here is a magical button and sometimes repair your whole website just by clicking it. For example, if you install a plugin that adds some content type like portfolios, you have to come here and press save. Now we get to the tools. Here's only the import and export that might be useful. Just please, export is not a backup of your website. It's basically not a backup at all. It's just when you want to move stuff from one website to another, but both of those websites have to be online. So, not a backup. The users, a list of all users that have access to your WordPress. Here's an important thing, and that is that for security reasons, your name that might appear on the website, for example as an author of the blog post, should never be the same as the username. Also, the worst username is admin. This is a security disaster. So make sure these are filled up and that your username is something unique. Second important thing are the roles. You can have different roles, for example author, and if that user logs in, they will only be able to edit the content. They will not be able to edit the settings and screw something up. Alright, so let's get into the appearance. Choosing a WordPress theme might be the toughest part of the whole journey. WordPress theme is what defines the design and the functionality of your website. And since the theme basically defines the whole website, it's extremely important that you choose wisely, because all the themes have some kind of settings, and those are individual for that theme only. And again, here's the reason I'm making this video, and that is my theme called Minimalio. It's aimed for minimalist portfolio website, and you can use it as a free theme. So just search Minimalio in your WordPress, install and activate. After you install and activate Minimalio, it adds this section in your menu. First part is about the premium features. Then you can check out the demos, which the premium users can import. And then there are the tutorials, which are mostly about Minimalio settings, but there are also tutorials about security, SEO, and more. Now, all themes have some kind of options. Minimalio uses the Customize section, where it adds its own settings. There you can adjust your website, and each of these sections has its own tutorial video. But generally, you adjust here the design, the functionalities, etc. As you can see, some of these sections are not available now. Those are unlocked with the Premium plugin. That also adds the portfolio content type and special Gutenberg blocks, namely special block for a gallery, so that you will have more options than what you get with the default one, and special blocks for filmmakers. So, for example, you can have a homepage with a full cover video. And most importantly, it connects you to my support, so that you can contact me if you have any issues. After the themes, the plugins are the second most important part that you download and use. Plugins are kind of like apps. They add some kind of functionalities, pretty much anything really. There are thousands of them. Again, there are free, freemium, and premium plugins. Now this is very important. Plugins are extra code. Extra code always means extra security vulnerabilities, plus extra power to process. And that slows down your website. There are few plugins that are necessary, but the less plugins there are, the better. If you install a plugin, it puts information in your database, and even if you find out that the plugin is useless and you delete it, the information doesn't get deleted. So, if you want to test some plugins, I strongly recommend not to do it on your final website. Also, plugins need to be updated. So, I recommend to switch on the automatic updates. Okay, and as explained before, I sell the extra features as a plugin. So I'm going to install it, but you obviously don't have to do this. I just want to have the full possibilities available. So you can purchase it at the premium plugin page. You will get an email with a zip file and a license key. And you will install it as a zip in the plugin section and paste your license key. Let's start with the widgets. This is the part where you actually edit content in the settings sections. Widgets are mostly used as content that repeatedly shows on your website. The most classic example would be a footer, the section at the bottom of your website. You edit them the same way as you edit the rest of your content. And depending in which widget section you will add them to, they will show on your website in that given area. So for example, I would add some contact information in my footer, and now that contact information is at the end of all of my pages and posts. And then there are the menus. The way that WordPress handles menus is that you create one and then you assign it to a position. Once you have created the menu, you first add your items to the menu by checking and pressing Add to the menu. If you are missing, for example, your portfolios, you might want to check the screen options up here and click those. Once you have added your items, here's a drag and drop system, so that you can change the order. If you want to make a submenu, you drag them to the right. So, just a quick example. I would create a header menu. The name is basically irrelevant. Assign it for the primary menu, add the pages I want there, and save. And now I have the main menu in my header. In case you want to add, for example, a link to your Instagram, use the custom links. Alright, great. And then there's also this option called Customize, which sends you to this area called Customizer, where you kind of have the same important options that we just talked about. So it's a duplication. You can edit the site title, menus, widgets, the same way as in the general settings. It's just a matter of preference. The design area is only applicable on what's called block themes, which is not our case, so nothing to do here. Alright, now let's go to the main editor, which is called Gutenberg. So for posts, pages, portfolios, you either click on Add New or you click on one that you already have. So we'll start with the UI, so all the buttons in the system and what they do. Then I'll try to explain you how the blocks work, plus go into more detail about the most important ones. And in the end, I'll just show you what to do if you screw up or how to back up the content that you have. So it's often called block system, and that's for a reason that the main part of it are the blocks. If we go from the left, then first thing first, this is your favicon, and you go back to your WordPress through here. Now here's a plus. These are all the blocks that you have available. And plugins could potentially add more. Like for example, the Premium Minimalio plugin adds the gallery and video blocks. Now here are patterns. That's basically just groups of blocks made in some way so that you can start with something rather than building it from scratch. Now this is back and forth, so that could be pretty useful. And here we get to what's called document overview. And it's, I think, the most necessary part of the whole system. I think it should be much more visible because the whole system is way more difficult to use without this. So when we open this, we can see that these are the blocks that I have right now on the page. The point is that here you can move them around. You got possibilities with options here to do stuff, mainly duplicate them, delete them, copy them. And without this, it's way more painful to adjust the content. Now, when we get to the right side, then here's another very important button, which opens the right side panel. So the right side panel is divided into two sections. One is the page or post or whatever post type you are just editing. And here you got the meta information, so what's the status, URL, template, very important, etc. Categories, tags. This again is dependent on the post type, so it's going to be different for your blog post, for example, where setting up featured image is way more important than for pages where they are not very used. And then we get to the blog part. So this depends on the blog you are editing at that moment. I'll get more into that. Very important button, publish or save if you have already published. And here we got some extra possibilities of viewing. Don't really use that, to be honest. Now, of course, in the middle, we got the system itself for the blocks. It starts with a title, so that's very important. The whole thing is like trying to look like how it would look on your website, but it's not one-to-one. Usually what I do is that I have the content that I'm editing open in one tab, and I have another window where I see what I've done. Now to the system of the blocks. So here I took some content from one of the Minimalio demos. It's an About Me page about fictional Samuel, and as I said, this is one of the most important buttons of the whole system. So here I got the blocks. I can open these, and as you can see, it's a hierarchical system, meaning there could be blocks inside another blocks, and this could go almost endlessly. Not that you want it, but theoretically. If I want to replicate this, that means I got basically two columns. There's a picture on the right side and different text on the left side. I would have to start with the blocks of columns right here. That creates single column twice in the columns. Plus I got the heading block here, paragraph block, buttons block, image block. Now the thing is that you can edit and adjust these blocks by different settings that are in two different locations. So first, there are always these options, and these options change depending on which block you are at. Plus, you always have this in the right side panel. I find this a little confusing, but you'll get used to it pretty quick. So as you can see now, I'm in the heading and I got all these options. So first I can change what kind of block it is. I can also move it like this. I can also move it by these arrows. I can change the alignment. I can change the text alignment. I can change the type of the heading. I can make it bold, italic. I can select it and link it. Okay, so either put some URL or choose something from your page. Plus, when that happens, I get this edit link and I have the option of setting it to a new tab. Plus options here. These are identical to options here. Now in this section, when I'm in the right side panel, I'm in the block section, you get again text color background, size dimension, so you can add padding and margin, and you can set a different HTML ID and another class, which could be useful for writing your own CSS. And as you can see, I can now click on the image and this will change and all of this will change. So all the blocks have different options. Now for the most important blocks, let me delete this and kind of make it from scratch. I'll start by columns because I find those are the most important one, because very often you want something in columns and you need to know how to use them. So I'll just drag them in there. First, it'll let me choose how many and what size are those. So let me choose just 50-50 and we look at it. We just got two columns. Now since it's 50-50, that means both of the columns are same width and therefore their width doesn't have to be set up because they're just the same. If you would choose a different thing, so like 3366, now you can see that the width in percentage is now set up. The nice thing about this is that you can just add and remove these and they will always automatically keep the same width. As you can see, you can also click in the different pluses that the system gives you, and that allows you to add blocks into the blocks. So I'll just add some heading somewhere and I'll add an image. Now, another cool thing about the columns is that you can also choose the vertical alignment. So you can make the blocks inside the column to be in the middle vertically, which is very cool. Now, there are other blocks which allow you to put different blocks in them, like group or row or even grid. So I think the best is for you to just play with them, see what they can do, and kind of try and error. There's no really better way to do this. You can see there's also widgets and just loads and loads of stuff. When it comes to the text itself, I've placed some lorem ipsum here. One trick is there's a difference between pressing enter and pressing shift enter. If you press enter, you create basically another paragraph block, and there'll be space between them. If you just want to get into another line, you have to press shift enter. Now I hope these are quite understandable. But the important thing is that if you want to, for example, change this into a heading, you just do it here. And now it's a heading. And then you can go back. Now the last part is what happens if you screw up. So first of all, if you have saved the page or the post multiple times, here in the page section you have the revisions. So you can click on those and here it gives you this slider which shows you the different saved versions that you have done. So if you screwed up, you can just go back and restore it. Okay, so that's the way you can basically go through the history and restore whatever version you've saved before. Alright, now I hope that you are at a point that you at least roughly understand how the content in WordPress works. Now at this point, there's the matter of design. And as explained before, Minimalio uses the customizer for this. And for the premium users, they can just import one of the demos. So you can then just replace the content from the demo and you can select the design and adjust it if you want. So instead of starting from scratch, you import the demo and just replace it with your content in Gutenberg. So for the purpose of not making this video 3 hours long, I'll not go into each of the theme settings. There are tutorials specifically about each of these sections. I'll just explain what generally do these sections do. Before I get into the Minimalio options, let's take a look at the site identity. So here you can upload your main logo, and if you don't want to do that, you can also adjust the site title size. Here's also again the option of adding your site icon, and if you need, you can also add an extra logo only for mobile devices. But that's only if you would want a different logo on mobiles. Otherwise, no need to do that. Cool. So let's get into the Minimalio options. Alright, so what we have here. First are the theme layout options. This is mainly about allowing you to choose if your website will be in a container or if it's going to always cover the whole screen. So that's mainly about large monitors. Background. You can choose a different color of the website or even use an image. Page options. Here you can set up a page title so that your page will automatically have a title on top, and some archive pages like category pages have this automatically. So you can adjust the size here. Typography. So here you can choose your Google font, adjust the colors, sizes, and different typography settings. Header. So header is the top area here, where your site title and your main menu is. You can choose a different styles of your header, which basically defines the look of your website. You can have the classic horizontal header, or you can have the vertical header, and more. You can adjust the colors of your header, different settings, and more. Footer is the area at the bottom. So firstly, again, different color settings, and then Minimalio allows you to add a copyright section here. So that would be this area underneath the widget area. Block options. So here are settings that apply to the block archive page. You can switch on and off the category filtering, adjust the style and more. And at the bottom, these settings are for the single post, so that you can add some automatic things like showing the title, meta information, latest post, etc. Now we are getting into the premium territory. So these settings are only available for the premium users. Portfolio settings, very similar to the block options. The portfolios just have different styles to look more like portfolios rather than blog posts. And then there are different cool options for the hover, like image hover or video hover. Social media. Here's a list of loads of social media networks, which add icons in the header and footer. Lightbox. So Lightbox is the functionality of when you have a gallery that you made in the Gutenberg editor, that if you click on the image from the gallery, it opens up the image like so. And you can adjust the colors, icon style, and switch on the possibility of having some text underneath the image, which is called a caption. And last one is mobile menu. So different settings for your mobile menu, like at what display size does the menu appear, colors, font sizes, etc. Alright, so let's finally start building the website. Now, first thing we have to think about is the structure, which basically means what will be in your main menu. This is actually easier said than done, because even with quite a simple system that Minimalio provides, you have quite a lot of options. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. We have posts, pages, and the premium users have the portfolios. Now, all of these have their unique URL. That means you can link to them and use them in a different way. Plus, the posts and portfolios have categories, and those categories have also unique URLs. So let's just make a few examples so that you understand what are the options. Let's start by making some demo content. Okay, so we have posts and portfolios. Each has a featured image. They also have categories and some content in them. And we have some pages. Now, I believe the less is almost always better. So the easiest way of structuring your website is to have a page with portfolios, a page with posts, and probably some about me page or contact. So to do that, you'll have a page called, for example, art, doesn't matter, and there you will select here the portfolio template. And you can still have some content here, like some claim, for example. But by choosing the portfolio template, there'll be now the list of your portfolios, and you can choose different options in the theme settings on how is that going to look like. Plus, you can have the category filtering. So then the user can filter your portfolios. And the same applies to the blog page. In the end, the only difference between portfolios and posts is that the portfolios have different features and different designs. Alternatively, you can use the categories. There's just a slightly hidden thing here in the menus, and that is if you want to add them to your menu, you have to enable them here in the screen options. So then you have pages with portfolios or posts just from that specific category. Another option is mainly for people with pictures or paintings, for example, who don't need much text or even any. So for those, it's much better to use the gallery instead. So you'd make a page and add a gallery. Either the default one or the premium users can add the Minimalio gallery, which has more options. And then there'll be pictures on the page, and if you click on them, they'll open in a lightbox like so. So the difference is these don't have their unique URL, but you can swipe through them. And with the Minimalio gallery, you can have this text here. So that's called a caption. And that's just roughly what are the possibilities. Okay, so let's review what we have learned so far, and hopefully it should be enough for you to put your website together. We have learned how to purchase the domain and hosting, and how to install WordPress on it. We talked about the basic settings of WordPress and about different types of the content. We went through the Gutenberg editor, how to structure your website, and how to adjust the design in the customizer. And with all that, I hope it gives you at least a good starting point for making your website. Now, in the last part of this tutorial, I'm going to talk about some essential and some useful plugins. Essential would be backup and security. Useful would be a few like SEO plugin and others. Okay, so security plugin. Even though using a unique username and a proper password should be enough, why not spend extra 2 minutes on making absolutely sure that nobody's going to mess with your website? And for that, we have to install a security plugin. I've been using the all-in-one security plugin for a decade now, and it kept my website safe. And trust me, I've learned the hard way. Clients were not happy. So the plugin settings are a little complicated, but after you install it and activate it, it now gives you this introduction. But other than the beginning, most of it is just asking you for either making an account or giving them money, which we don't want to do. So let's just skip this whole section, and instead, let's take a look at the critical features that are here in the dashboard. So let's go through them one by one and basically just switch them on. Okay, so admin username, I talked about this. Just don't use admin as your username. Login, logout. So let's switch this on. That's to prevent the damn bots to try logging into your website a million times until they guess the password. file permission. So if we go here, you should make sure that there are no files with incorrect file permission settings. Basic firewall, definitely. Let's switch that on and save. And you can of course go through all of these and also switch them on, but this one is critical. Database prefix, so let's also switch this on. PHP file editing, on, thank you. Renamed login page, this is also very important. So what you can do here is to change the URL on which you log into WordPress. So instead of WP admin, it's going to be something unique only for your website. This is very good security feature. So let's put something here like my portfolio login and save. So from now on, you will not log in to your WordPress with WP admin, but instead with what you have written here. So your domain / for example, my portfolio login. Hidden WP meta info, yes please. Perfect, and you can sleep much better from now on. Now let's get to backup. For that, I really like the plugin called Duplicator, and that allows you to make what's called packages, and those are complete backup of your website. In the free version, it doesn't allow you to recover the website by one click, but that is not the purpose here. You just want a complete backup, safely stored in your computer, and only in the case of some disaster, you can either pay for the premium version or anybody who knows a little bit about FTP can restore your website from the package in 3 minutes. So you just make a package by clicking next, and after it's done, you have to download the archive and install a PHP file and store them somewhere safely. So you need 2 files, a zip file and install a PHP file, and just download them and save them. Alright, and here's just a list of plugins that I consider useful. SEO plugin, I personally use Rank Math. So this plugin allows you to specify how your website is going to look on Google, and also if it's shared on social networks. There's a special video tutorial on my channel about setting this up. Image optimization plugin, so you really don't want to upload gigantic images to your website. It's going to slow down your website significantly and fill your hosting space. I think it's better to optimize the images before uploading. But if you are lazy, you can use a plugin. There are loads of. I've used Insanity and I think it's good. Simple history. This is especially useful with multiple users, and it also shows you all the mean bots that try to log into your website. Cache plugins. I think that if you have decent hosting, don't have millions of plugins, and your theme is well done, you don't need these. But caching makes basically your website load faster, so might be useful. Alright, and that's it. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. As said, my premium plugin comes with support, so you can ask, just email me if you have any issues. And of course, wouldn't mind if you can subscribe to my channel. I'll be making loads of videos about WordPress, and I wish you good luck. Thanks.